So why now? You might be thinking, it wasn't that important 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago. Why now? Well, as I said, the world has changed dramatically. For one, we're under intense commoditization. Advantages of the past have become commoditized. Everyone's playing catch-up. It's like an arms race. Think about the information age. Even information itself has largely become commoditized with the invention of Google and Wikipedia. Next is speed. As we all know, the world is moving at a dramatic pace. Complete business cycles that used to last a decade or more are now happening in a matter of months. Barriers to entry have completely dropped. Used to be in the industrial age, if you had a great idea, you'd still need to build a factory and build distribution channels and raise capital. Nowadays, a kid in a college dorm room with a high-speed internet connection can launch Facebook and become a billionaire in 18 months. And finally, globalization, and more specifically, cost-cutting. In the middle of a recession, what do companies do? They cut the cost, right? They say, all right, we're going to cut our way to profitability. The problem is that's already been out of the system, and you can only cut your way so far. At some point, as a company, you need to invent and grow and innovate in order to win. In the new rules of engagement, the world is too complex and too fast to follow an operating manual to success. We all are going to need to tap in and innovate and improvise in order to win. We're going to go right to ground zero, right to the epicenter of creativity, which clearly is the British government, known for their originality and uniqueness. Well, the British government recently did a study. The Ministry of Education did a study. And they did some tests for kids, how they identified, did they feel like they were creative or not? Were they creative, yes or no? So they asked this study to kids who were entering kindergarten, their equivalent of kindergarten. And they found out that 98% of children said, yeah, I'm creative. I'm a creative person. Well, they asked that same question to graduating seniors. What do you think the number was? Anybody? 50%? 30%? 2%. 2%. How does that happen? How does school take us from 98% of kids saying we're creative? We go through school, which is supposed to prepare us for life, and we end up with 2%. What is going on here? What's going on is that we don't grow into creativity, we grow out of it. Think back when you were a kid. There was no such thing as a cardboard box, right? It was a fort or a Barbie mansion or a pirate ship. We played for hours. You put a bunch of 6-year-olds in a room with toys, hours and hours of endless imagination. If we're all in that same room, 45 seconds later, we're checking our BlackBerries and our iPhones. So we start out in the world, these bright, vibrant, imaginative kids, and over time, our schools and our educational systems and our companies and our organizations kind of beat it out of us, don't they? And what ends up happening is we become the thing that we fear the most, grumpy adults, AKA our parents. And not the cool parents in the Viagra commercials. So I want you to think about creativity for a second as a muscle. All humans have muscles. And if we exercise them, we go to the gym, we really work out, we will build muscle mass, any one of us, no matter how we were born. If we don't, what happens? They atrophy. They just don't work very much. So unfortunately, we're in a situation where most of us, this nation really, is kind of scrawny. We're kind of scrawny. But I'm going to share some very specific techniques that you can take with you today, right out of here, the minute you leave, that will allow you to get pumped up. Craig, thanks for shooting this picture earlier this morning. I was kind of getting ready. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to think about the number 1 for a second. One idea is all it takes to change your life, to change your career, to change your company. One idea is all it takes, and that one idea is inside each of you right now. So let's figure out how to bring it out. As you saw from the introduction, I'm a jazz guy. And jazz is a cool form of art in that it's real time, you can't go back and correct mistakes, and it's spontaneous creativity, it's improvisational. When you're playing jazz, 99% of the notes you make up as you go, and only 1% are on the written page. But that 1% is really important, because that 1% tells the musicians important things, like here's the chord structure, here's the tempo, here's the key signature, here's some guideposts. So that scaffolding, if you will, enables creativity, it doesn't restrict it. There is a form of jazz called free jazz, which is horrendous, where there's no scaffolding and it's just like sounds like a train wreck. So again, that little bit of guidance really helps people bring out their best creativity and work together as a group. What I started to realize, having been in business now for 20-some years, is that there is no similar framework in the business world. If you think about it, there's business systems and processes for everything, right? How do you answer the phone? How do you set the alarm? How do you deal with a customer complaint? But creativity is often left to happen by chance. It's supposed to happen in the shadows. Like, when do you sit down and say, okay, I'm going to schedule 2 hours to be creative? Doesn't often happen. So I felt that there was a burning need in the business world for a proven system to build creativity. So I did a bunch of research and wrote a book about it. It's called Disciplined Dreaming, which is a proven system to drive breakthrough creativity. And in preparing for the book, I not only drew on my own entrepreneurial experiences and jazz experiences, of course, but I also researched quite a bit. So I interviewed 200 thought leaders. I interviewed artists, musicians, billionaires, CEOs, entrepreneurs, nonprofit leaders, and tried to boil all this information down into like a really simple, easy-to-follow process. So I'm going to share with you that process today and give you some things, again, that you can take out immediately and put to use. So the system goes like this. There's 5 simple steps. The first one is ask. And in ask, what you're doing is you're sort of identifying the creative challenge. What are you directing your creativity towards? And you're awakening your curiosity and awareness. You're getting ready to create. The next step is one of preparation, where you're preparing your mind, your physical surroundings, and in fact, your culture of your organization to bring out maximum creativity. Step 3 is discover. And in discover, what you're doing is you're looking under the rocks. You're finding creativity in the places that it hides. Step 4 is the fun part, ignite, where you're bringing out proven brainstorming techniques that will really unleash your creativity. And step 5, which is often overlooked, is a launch phase, in which you've got all these great ideas on the board, but how do you choose the best ones? How do you winnow out and find the ones that are going to make the most difference in your organization? And then how do you put them into action? Okay, we're going to fast forward to the fun part, which is ignite. And here's some proven techniques that you can use right away to bring out ideas. The first one I'd like to share is called edge storming. We've all heard of brainstorming, right? Edge storming is like brainstorming, but taking your idea to the furthest possible extreme. In other words, what's the absolute loudest I can go with this? What's the quietest? What's the most expensive? What's the least expensive? How can I take my idea all the way to the edge? And by forcing yourself to take an idea all the way to the edge, you break through barriers that could be holding you back. Now, you might end up with crazy ideas, and sure, you can always scale them back to reality. But by forcing yourself all the way to the extremes, you really have a tool to unleash creativity. Cirque du Soleil did that. They didn't say, okay, I'm going to start a circus, I'm going to compete with Barnum & Bailey, the entrenched leader, and I'm going to make things 11% better. I'm going to have one extra elephant in the circus. I'm going to do incremental improvements. Of course not. They broke the mold. They said, I'm going to introduce the arts and theater and music and dance and all these things. Today, Cirque du Soleil is a billion-dollar company. Barnum & Bailey filed for bankruptcy. Average ticket price for Cirque du Soleil shows, which are continuously sold out, is 3 times that of the Barnum & Bailey circus. They edge-stormed their way all the way to success. Next one I'd like to share with you is called the long list. I was studying advertising in college, and a teacher gave us an assignment. It said, break into groups, and we want you to come up with headlines for our product. We're like, cool, no problem. Until she said, don't come back until you have 200 headlines. So I was like, oh, God, 200 headlines. Are you kidding me? So we went back in our groups, and here's what happened. The first 20 were the obvious, easy ones. That's where most people stop. Then came the silly ones, and the goofy ones, and the inappropriate ones, and the bizarre ones, and the really off-color ones. And so we all got back together, and our groups had to present our best ideas to the rest of the class. None of the group's best ideas were like idea number 4 or 11 or 13. The ones that were the winners were 196 or 172 or 169. The quantity produced better quality because it forced us away from the easy, obvious answers and got us into new territory, that new territory of creativity. The opposite. Fellow Detroiter Tony Sosnick came to me in 1999 and said, Josh, I'm going to start a cosmetics company. I was like, all right, that's kind of cool. He goes, here's the thing. It's going to be for men. I said, for men? He said, Josh, if I started a cosmetics company for women, I'd have like the 174th mover advantage. For men, no one's doing it. There's a wide open market. People will buy aftershave and hair care products and tanning stuff specifically for men. It's a great gift, etc. So, of course, I told him, don't do it. And I was completely wrong because today he's got the largest men's cosmetics company in the world. He's in thousands of outlets worldwide. A tremendous success story. And all because he did the exact opposite of conventional wisdom. Here's how you can put it to action. Again, it's a simple technique, but it really is powerful. If you're faced with a business challenge, think about all the ways that you normally take that challenge on. List them out. Then say, all right, what are all the ways that my competitors do it? What are all the conventional wisdom ways of doing it? What's the status quo? And then force yourself to literally look at exactly the opposite of every one of those. You may end up with 30 ideas on the page, and 27 of them might be completely stupid and undoable, but 3 might be gems. So it's a really powerful way, again, to get through finding new, powerful ideas.